these guys are just stagnant. They get in the top 15 and they don't do anything for a whole year. It's kind of weird how they do that. So for me, I want to get in the top 15 and I want to make a big splash and just go in there and fight.
UFC Featherweight Damon Jackson, fresh off his victory in June. He'll be back in action next month against Pat Sabatini. He joins us today to discuss the upcoming fight in September and a recently canceled boxing match at MSG in which he offered to step in for. How's everything going today, sir?
It's going good, man. Yeah, going good. The boxing thing, I'm just fucking around with Jake. The dude, poor guy, can't catch a break. But I was actually trying to make weight for. I made weight for UFC 277 here in Dallas, and I was hoping to step in on one of those 55 fights, and it just didn't happen. So, but no, the Jake Paul thing, I was joking around.
Oh, you weren't serious about that?
Oh no, I'll fight him 100%.
What was that?
I said I'll fight him 100%. I was saying I was jacking around because I knew Dana wouldn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of seems like it's a foregone conclusion anyway, right? Yeah, so I want to get right into it, man. So, obviously it's safe to say that you came out rather fresh in this one, right? Is a quick turnaround something that you wanted coming out of that last fight?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wanted quicker. I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight in Dallas in July. So, like me fighting, every 2 or 3 months is what I like to see. Anything more than that is just kind of like I feel like I'm so busy with my life. I have 4 kids, four little girls, so they keep me busy. So whenever I don't have a fight, it's kind of hard for me to like spend all the time in the gym that I normally do, and miss any of their stuff. So whenever I have a fight consistently, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we get into the fight, right? I want to talk about the last fight, right? The last time we saw you in action for a moment. What did you make of the fight now in hindsight, the win against Daniel Argetta? What do you think of the fight as we look back?
It was a really frustrating performance, honestly, because I felt like, I'd worked way harder than that, and to come out there and not feel so good with my body, it was really frustrating because I had a great weight cut. I'm not really sure what happened with the rehydration, but something happened there where I either rehydrated and didn't do it the right way, or I gained too much weight and I couldn't get the weight off. It was crazy. I worked out twice. I worked out the same day of weigh-ins. I worked out that night, and then I worked out again the next morning before I fought, just to try to get some of that water weight off. But it was crazy because I ended up getting all up to like 176, and just couldn't lose the weight. Normally I fight around 166 or 168, so I gained weight and I just could not lose it. And then the next day, I felt like I was like starving, like I was so hungry and I was so thirsty, and I just couldn't, like, every time that I ate or drank anything, it just stayed in. It never came out. So it was crazy. Out, like, as I was walking to the cage, my game plan was going to be to box and to stay on the feet and to not really wrestle so much because I knew that's where he would feel comfortable. And him taking the fight on a shorter notice, I figured, keeping on the feet would be the best bet to, tire him out and then go for that finish. And, when I was walking out there, I was like, dude, I've got to take this kid down because my legs feel like crap. I didn't know what happened. They felt so heavy. And it was just a great weight cut. It's just the rehydration. So I get that fixed up, and I'll come into this fight ready to go.
Would you attribute the fight going into those deep waters third round as to what happened in the camp?
Yeah, I mean, like me, it wasn't really my camp per se. It was more just I was very well prepared for whoever I was gonna fight. I either rehydrated too quickly or I did it and put something in my body that I shouldn't have. And I just held on to every bit of the weight. But, like as far as like my performance, that was 100% why I didn't feel good, because I was in great cardio, great shape, ready to go. And I mean, I took him down. I had his back within like 20 seconds. So it was kind of frustrating to have his back and to not have the strength in my legs and my core to like finish the fight. It was definitely frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes there may be a fine line between coaching a fighter and perhaps talking down to the opponent, right? You had some words for Cub Swanson, who was in he was in Daniel's corner,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
based on some of the things he might have said to you during the fight, that kind of forced you to speak on it afterwards. Can you talk about some of the things that he said that forced you to sort of come out and have to speak on it?
I mean, he was just kind of running his mouth. He was kind of saying how what I was doing wasn't good, and like he was basically saying that it was a boring fight, And I was like, man, why don't you spend some time coaching this kid, and maybe you could teach him or tell him what to do to get out of this position. And then, we'd have an exciting fight. But it was kind of like he said something to me in the middle of the round. So I was like, dude, like, what's your, like, you don't talk to another fight, talk to the coach maybe afterwards. That coaches can talk to coaches, but you don't talk to the other person's fighter. Hey man, if you don't like what you saw, let's go. Let's run it back, because I would love to take on that. I would love to take that fight. I would smash him on the ground, smash him anywhere. He needs to be out of the sport soon, and it just like he pissed me off because he was running his mouth, and then afterwards he acted like it wasn't a big deal. But I was just kind of like, in that moment I was definitely heated up and pissed off about it. But couple of days later, he hit my coach up and apologized. So I know he's a good dude, but in the middle of it, I just don't understand like the disrespect. It was like don't talk to me, talk to your teammate or your student, talk to him and tell him what to do to get out of this position. So if he wants to, I was trying to get that fight as soon as it was over. I was trying to get that fight, but I think he's going to get matched up with someone else.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you next. Regardless of him getting matched up with someone else, or you, of course, you have a big fight coming up now. But is that a fight that interests you maybe down the line? It seems like it is, right?
Yeah, I'll fight him any day. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So let's look ahead now, right? You're back in action next month against Pat Sabatini, right? How's the training camp been going for that so far? And I want to harp back to this last fight where you mentioned that you were still learning now, right? You're still even learning at this stage in the game. So do things change in the approach for this fight compared to the last one?
Yeah, because there's a lot on the line. Because I got a 3-fight win streak. He's got a four
Right.
fight win streak. I know he's going to be very well prepared. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and tries to show a different side of his skill set. And don't be surprised if I come out there showing a different side of my skill set. So it's like this fight means a lot to the rankings and moving forward for both of us. So I know that it's going to be a tough fight either way. And I'm very amped up for this one. I don't get amped up for a lot of fights, but I feel like I'm being tested for sure with our win streaks on the line and with our grappling styles to kind of clash like that. It means a lot for the division. And going forward, I think whoever wins this fight gets a big push.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I think it's a big fight in the division for sure. And you mentioned you hinted
Yeah.
rather at the rankings, right? Do you anticipate that this could be a fight to get you into the rankings, get you against a ranked guy in your next fight?
I don't see how it wouldn't be. I think the winner of this goes on to fight someone in the top 15 for sure, because these guys are just stagnant. They get in the top 15 and they don't do anything for a whole year. It's kind of weird how they do that. So for me, I want to get in the top 15 and I want to make a big splash and just go in there and fight anybody that wants to fight and start calling people out if I have to. But I want to make my way to that top 15 after this fight and then get into that top 10. Maybe mid year next year.
Yeah. And speaking of this fight, right? What do you think of Pat and his skill set as an opponent for you?
I mean, he's a great grappler, man. Well rounded. He's a great wrestler. Comes from a wrestling background, which is always tough mindset, tough physically. He'll be ready to go for all 3 rounds. And his jiu-jitsu is it's one of the best, maybe the best, one of the best guys that I've fought so far with jiu-jitsu. And he comes from a really great camp. And any of those guys up northeast, they know how to wrestle. So I know that he's gonna be prepared to defend my wrestling and to also be offensive wrestling. So it's a tough fight for sure, 100%. But I'm really working. I'm really working, putting in the work. I have been this past year and a half. I've been really working, trying to just improve everything and be way more well rounded in my fights instead of just going out there desperately looking for takedowns.
And was that frustrating in your last fight? Because you just said that you wanted to be well rounded, right? Yeah, I think you said
Yeah.
leading up or after the last fight that you said that you actually wanted to strike, but he sort of forced you into controlling him on the ground in that fight, right? So was it a little frustrating for you coming out of that one? Like, damn, I wanted to show everything, like my
Yeah.
striking and all that.
Yeah, it was because that was definitely not the fight that I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be, me hitting him and moving, hitting and moving, and so to go out there and to engage myself, go engage in a takedown that quickly was really frustrating because that was not my game plan. I just you learn a lot from each fight, but from that fight, what I learned the most was my rehydration is going to be a lot different this fight, and I know the skills were there that last fight. I just didn't. I wasn't ready physically to show them. So that's my main focus. This is for this fight is to be the best physically fit. You know, mentally I'll be ready to go. You know, technique wise I'll be ready to go, but physically I just gotta make sure that I have the good weight cut, good rehydration, and just get in there ready to go.
Seems like you want to have that all dialed in for this one, so that's good to hear. And when you look at the division, right, the featherweight division, we just spoke about it, right? A lot of people like to say 135 is the best, 155. I'm not saying to rank all that or anything, but what do you make of the
Yeah.
division, the 145-pound division? You think it's underrated? You think it's perfectly rated?
I think anyone that understands the skill set that goes with being a featherweight or like a bit like 35, 45, and 55, I feel like that's the most technical weight classes in the whole UFC period. I don't care what anybody says because you got to be stupid fast. You got to be pretty strong. You got to work on your power. You don't just have that knockout power. You got to really work on it. You got to work on like the different styles of techniques. It happens so quickly. Like you go from wrestling to jiu-jitsu to striking so quickly when you're talking these guys walking around at like, maybe I hit 75 sometimes, but most of the time I'm staying below 75 and I'm cutting down to featherweight. So you're walking around, these guys are technically the best for sure. Like well-roundedness is, definitely the wrestling has always been like that. Whenever I was wrestling at like 165 and 157, that was the hardest weight classes in the whole nation. And so whenever you go into fighting, it's the same thing. Like that's a pretty average weight for a lot of guys. And so to cut down to that, where there's just more guys to choose from. It's a tough division for sure. I think it's definitely one of the best and one of the most technical for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have one of the pound for pound fighters as a champion too, right? One of the one or two in
Yeah,
the world. So
yeah,
it's yeah, for
yeah,
sure. So, you can't predict anything in such a wild circumstance that is MMA, right? 4-ounce gloves, fighting in a
yeah.
cage. But if you get out of this fight relatively unscathed, are you looking to stay active? Maybe one more fight before the end of the year? I've kind of heard you
Hundred
hint that you
percent.
like to stay active.
100%. Yeah, I would love to fight. I want to have some fans on my next fight. I want to fight in front of a big crowd. I want to hear, all the screaming and, all the craziness with fans, man. Just I respect the fans a lot, and after this is my either my sixth or seventh fight with no fans. So I'm definitely ready to get back in there and hear a big crowd, screaming and chanting, even if it's not for me. Just hearing some people screaming, it'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of fans, popularity, all that stuff, you know, I've seen in the past that the UFC kind of likes guys who are an anytime, any place kind of fighter, female or male, whatever it may be. It seems
Yeah,
very much like you're that kind of guy, right? Have you seen
yeah,
that from the UFC that they kind of appreciate that they, in the long run, it may be something that'll pay off for you because you do have that attitude.
yeah, and it's honest. It's an honest attitude. It's not, that's no, I'm nothing I'm trying to like put out there. And as that's me. I want to be active. I want to be consistent. I want to be the guy they call whenever they need something. Like I stay healthy. I'm, always close to weight. I'm always in great condition. I can take those short notice fights, and I can, like when I fought Betic, I found that I got that fight on a 3-day notice during COVID. I wasn't even getting to train the right way, and I ended up, submitting Bektik on a 3-day notice. And basically, that cowboy fight in New Mexico, I was ready to step in on that the day of, and in Dallas, I was ready to step up on any of those guys that felt if they would have fallen out or if they would have missed weight. I was ready to step in then, and that's like they've known about that every single time that I would step up. And anytime they've called me about a matchup, I don't even like second guess it. I say yes before I tell them to sign my contract, and don't even ask me. Just tell me who I'm fighting one day, and that is what it is. And that's why I'll be like that forever. And I would love to take another short notice fight as soon as this fight's over.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it seems like short notice fights is something you like to do, right? You also kind of hinted at that with the whole Jake Paul thing, which is something we spoke about briefly. But is it something you would ever see yourself doing, going down the boxing route someday if the money was right?
Hell yeah. I mean, whatever, man. I don't care. Like I just like competing. So getting to compete is, that's my goal in life is competing and being the top of whatever it is. And I would love to box. Boxing is great when it's just boxing only. It's a completely different sport, and I'm a different fighter when I just box. So I could definitely do that 100%.
Yeah. And speaking of, your career and all that, you said that your entire pro career is based out of Dallas, right? You wanted to get on that Dallas card. You were very adamant about that this past
Yeah.
card that just happened. Is that like a dream for you being now in the UFC to fight in Dallas? And also, do you feel a sense of pride representing the gym and that area?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, man. I've been here since 2013, and I've been fighting out of here, selling tickets out of here, the sponsor stuff that I've worked with, and all the kids that I've coached wrestling with, all my old teammates in every sport. And so like to be around here and to have that pressure of performing in front of everyone, it's just like it's a great feeling. And I haven't had that in a long time since LFA, like in 2018 or something like that. So I would love to step in and fight in Dallas, on the main card. Or like I want to be somewhere on the card where I'm fighting a big name there. It'd be awesome. But Houston would be awesome. Anywhere in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, any of that stuff would be great.
Yeah, and that whole area, right? Well, obviously, it's all very close to Fortis MMA. That's your home, right? That's where you
Yeah,
train.
yeah,
And how has it been
yep.
improving there as a fighter?
I mean, it's one of the best places to be a fighter. Honestly, there's so many gyms to choose from. There's a lot of great jiu-jitsu gyms around here. A lot of great Muay Thai and kickboxing gyms. There's some of the best MMA gyms in the world are here. So you got plenty. If you want to get better at MMA, it's a great area to be at. The economy is great. The gyms never close down. You never have to worry about finding partners. There's a partner at every gym you go to. So Dallas is one of the best places to train for sure. One of the best economies in the U.S. So it's great to be here for sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you are 34 years old, right? And it seems like
Yep.
it's sort of prime years still in MMA, right? It seems like you're still in your prime years, right? So what I got to ask you is, how do you feel now at this stage in the game in terms of physically and your fight IQ?
Fight IQ has been through the roof. I've just been trying to really be a nerd about everything, and I watch a lot of fights now, and I really like to break down fights with some of my clients actually fight. So a lot of my clients have been training for years. They actually started fighting, and so to break down their opponents with them and teach them things that I see from the video, it's really cool. And to have that fighter IQ it really pays off. Like in the second, third round, when you're trying to land something that you haven't really ever done in any other fights, but you've done it in practice so many times. It's just it's a cool feeling for sure. And as far as like physically, like I feel no different. I feel like I would smash myself, and like if I were to wrestle myself back in my college wrestling days compared to now, I would destroy myself like in college. So I feel like I've done nothing but got better since the seventh grade when I started wrestling. So this is definitely something that means a lot to me. And to be at this level at this point in my career is really cool.
Yeah, sounds great. And one last question here, man. I appreciate the time. What could the fans expect to see from you in the upcoming pay-per-view? Right, right. You're obviously back in action September 17th. Going to be a big fight again, like you said, for the
Yeah.
featherweight division. What can the fans expect to see? Obviously, a win and a loss isn't guaranteed, but what do you think they'll see in there?
Like no fear, man. I'm coming out there. I'm gonna be in his face 100%. And I'm not stopping, I'm not slowing down. I'm looking for a finish every fight, and that's no different with this fight. I know he's a great grappler, great wrestler, but I get him on the ground, I get him on his back, I'm gonna finish him.